who I'm supposed to talk to and where I'm supposed to be at any given moment. I have a partner in crime, and then the team behind me that does all our automation work. For the recording, can each of you introduce yourselves so my team knows who's talking?
Sure. I'll start. Mark Garcia. I am the materials manager at Fox Factory El Cajon plant.
Okay.
Jason Patron, I'm the controller, and I work closely with Mark on inventory controls and things like that. In El Cajon as well.
I'm Michael Fisher. I'm the Global Quality Systems Manager.
So all the key players, quality and accounting. I love it. Okay. Mark and I had a good conversation 2 days ago about the current opportunities, issues, problems that you're having. I gave him an explanation of who we are and what we do and what we've been doing for the last 2 decades. And I'm going to give you another short overview of what we do. We have been automating automotive parts manufacturers for 2 decades, over 2 decades. And besides label printing and doing all the integration with machines and shipping and receiving, et cetera, we have come to understand the current environment of automotive part manufacturers to have some real issues when it comes to inventory. We have a warehouse management solution that integrates as wide and as deep or as narrow and shallow as the plant requires to get the most benefit from their labeling and moving inventory around. A key piece of information that Mark told me is that you use Oracle, that you have extensively modified Oracle to meet the needs of the plant. And that's not uncommon. We talk, let's put it this way, there are a few plants that don't have a culture that defines a different method in some level to what other plants and other standards are. So in that statement, we like Honda, the Honda set of best practices when it comes to inventory. Toyota and Ford and GM have their own flavors. So it's just not uncommon that the ERPs have been modified to the benefit and use for the plant that is using it. So that's my first statement. The second statement is you probably, like 30% of other ERP MES solutions are more part quantity centric than container serial number centric. And for the accuracy that Blackhawk provides, there is a change of ideal. We support, as do Honda and Toyota and the other OEMs, serialized container management. So when you print off a label, it's for a container, and that container can be tracked forward and backward within your part use. For the 30% of the plants that we have that are using a part quantity based inventory, we have an integration layer that changes all of our container detail management into part quantity management. So we update the ERP with part quantities, but we maintain serialized container management on the floor level. So that was the basic, we'll say, conclusion of the important information that Mark and I came up with. I am sure that we also talked about some shipping and some receiving and how you do receiving and the paperwork involved. Blackhawk doesn't like paperwork. We're scan centric. We have plants that literally don't have any paperwork. That's what they tell me when I go visit the plant. Yeah, they do have paperwork and they do spreadsheets, but not to the level that they used to. And they're telling the powers that be that they're paperwork free because that's a point on their management's judgments of how well they're doing. But they are fairly accurate when they say they don't touch their inventory by paper. They don't do cycle count adjustments on paper. They don't do moves on paper. And so their soul is in the right place, though they tend to fib on certain of their practices. And we walk with them through that practice, and they sort of cost justify that behavior to themselves. And the following year, it may come up, and we have pretty solid canned solutions for most of the processes they use by paper, and we move forward. So, Mark, I'm actually going to pass this back to you. Do you have any points that I brought up to you that you would like to bring up to the team that you would like me to comment on?
Well, I believe when one of the parts that actually stood out was the route. Michael had already started to initiate in cross plant between us and Georgia was his the plan for every part program, which kind of coincides with how your system is dealing with at the container level, doing everything like Kanban size for accuracy, and also the portion that really rung out was the integration with our cycle count. I work very closely more with Jason in regards to our cycle count, as he's the one who reports these numbers for our audits and ensures that we're staying on top of the inventory accuracy. The solution of getting it to where it's all based like on a tablet where it's no longer people kind of being able to go to a physical paper and picking and choosing what they want to count, where it's all just within the tablet and it just queues it up and then they go based off of that, utilizing technology more reliant on that and making it less of a putting more automation in place.
Yes, we talked about the cycle count model. There's this cycle count model from your reference point seems to be part quantity accuracy. We, from a warehouse model, needs serial number accuracy. Now, I would like more information on how the Oracle cycle count works, so that we could replicate it in its behavior, but then add a layer of, we'll say, tablet-based organization. So there is no paper as much as there is direction to the user on what they're counting and where the material is. That's I'm not going to say that's typical. There is a disconnect in most warehouse management systems between the warehouse itself and the floor. So all my questions are going to come to pass will be on how does a cycle counter count the inventory that's not attributed to the warehouse. For example would be on the line, it being consumed as product is made. That needs to be discovered. So you've put a lot of work into your cycle count behavior, and so we don't want to disturb that at all. There may be a time in the future, 5 years from now, where you may look at all of the plants using your cycle count and describe a better way to do it. but I am not here to say there is a better way uh, without truly understanding how you use it.
Well, currently, we've kind of already accepted we're on our second year of a cycle count program here in El Cajon. And we've already come to accept that we're going to be doing a physical inventory annually for at least our shop floor side. Our goal is to eliminate a physical inventory at the end of the year for the actual warehouse, our 3PL, and our finished goods locations, as well as some of our other divisions within El Cajon. But we've kind of like already kind of accepted the fact that shop floor is always going to be that's going to have to be counted. I'd like to down the road to make that where it's accurate, because it's kind of taxing on some of my staff that we're consistently having to go and adjust numbers on dealing with the production side.
It is.
Hey, Bob.
Yes, sir.
Would it be helpful to kind of look at our plan for every part material to kind of have a conversation about, kind of the bigger picture? Because I see cycle count as kind of down in the weeds a little bit. It's important, and inventory accuracy, but there are some things that we're trying for, and I think if I can give you an overview of what we're doing with plan for every part, it might be helpful for the larger discussion.
That would be wonderful. Can we do it right now, or do you want to schedule a different?
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to go through our PFEB training material as it exists today. And you mentioned that you're working with Honda and Toyota, and so you're familiar with PFEP, and
Yes.
and so some of the stuff will look familiar, and you can kind of see how we're in the journey, they say, of going from where we were to going to PFEP. And so, this is just some background. I explained PFEP for those who don't know, and the 8 kinds of waste, and some goals of PFEP and what we try to do. And cycle counting elimination is one of those, right? And inventory accuracy. We look at material flow from our supply base, in transit, receiving, put away, picking, transfer to the line, production, um, shipping to the customer, and usage out to customers as well. So we follow all the way through. We look at commonizing parts so that we don't have 12 different O-rings, for example, the same size and material. We look at our flow through the plant from receiving to shipping. So we have a kind of value stream map, and we look at supplier packaging as it exists today. And and actually I just came from another meeting talking about supplier packaging improvement. And actually I stole this picture directly from Toyota. It was so good that there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. I just really like that. IKEA also has really good information on PFEP as well. We've developed a supplier packaging manual and packaging approval forms, and as part of our PPAP checklist and Kanban ready packaging, sealed bags. And we are currently receiving VDA labels on the boxes, but Oracle's unable to access that, and I'm not sure what the challenge is there, why we can't use the VDA label that the suppliers are using with unique identifier. And I'm hoping that's one of the things that the warehouse management system can help us with, would be to be able to scan those labels that come in and be able to recognize, the lot number, everything else. And Oracle was purposely kind of dumbed down, some years ago, because it was implemented by one of our sister sites that in Watsonville that's no longer in operation. They didn't have any experience with PFEP. They didn't have experience with MPNL. They didn't have experience with these things, and so they didn't know, and they just took everything out of it. And they were much smaller, and at that time, kind of probably made sense since they didn't understand the value and what we need from Oracle and what it can do. So those lot control and other things that exist in Oracle, we don't utilize today. And so that's kind of why we're looking at a WMS. And if the WMS can help us with the FIFO and lot control and rev control and those kinds of things, that would be a win. The way we lay out the warehouse, we think about the spaghetti diagram, and we look at how materials flow from the warehouse to the production lines. And we look at, in receiving today, we're using a manual system of cones and visual identification of, what's, shipped to stock, what has to be inspected, what doesn't have a PO that just arrived, or in overage or underage or any other types of issues. And our goal is to move to RFID and to roll this out to supply base. So when we get the Kanban ready packaging with RFID tags, that we just receive it in, and having transponders in the warehouse that tell us, and the Kanban bins have RFID tags. There's transponders on the racks, so the rack knows that the bin is there. The bin knows it has the right parts. You know where everything is. And the quantities are right sized. Toyota has a magic number of 240. Like, they're going to build Camrys, they'll buy everything in quantities of 240 because it's really convenient for multiples of 12, so you can cube, and on, right? And we look at how our bays used to be, and in some cases still are in some locations. And if you went to look for part number 123 in this mess, you would stop at the first box of 123 you found, if you could find it. And then we've started going to a slotting Kanban operation. So 123 lives here. And I should probably ask this. Can you see my mouse and my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. And so that way, I always know 123 lives here. There's no transponders yet. There's no RFID tags yet. We don't have a solution yet. We have some individuals who have come in and quoted different things to us for that. And so inventory accuracy automatically goes up, and you have this. You can see blue bags here, already sealed Kanban bags of parts. None of our supply base is there yet, but they're kind of transitioning that way. That saves us an opening bags of 60,000 pieces, and then counting out, however many we need for production run. And that saves time. That improves accuracy. The maximum you would have open, at one time should be 240 pieces. There are some exceptions to that, to really tiny parts. We might go multiples of 240, something like that, but nevertheless, that's kind of the goal. You have Kanban bins, and you don't have kind of loose parts. The kind of building snowflakes and custom builds don't exist. And what we're doing for racing, every race car is a custom build, so that's never going to go away. But they don't have multiple parts like this. So they have very limited things that are individually packed, and it's a totally different animal. So it's trying to apply snowflake building to mass production. And so we have, where we receive bulk packaging from supplier. We do detrashing and Kanban. Ideally, we take out Kanban ready packaging, scan, match, drop it into the bin. Bin goes on the shelf, and then that enters the Kanban loop. Then the only way that the Kanbans and materials can come out of the loop would be as finished goods, or as scrap. Let's say we dropped it and broke it, or as supplier quality issue, and that's it. Once we do that, then there's no other way to come out of the loop. And we know that part number 123 is either in its home location, or it's at the station that owns part number 123. We only use that part at, let's say, this station. So it's only one of two places. And if we use that, let's say it's an O-ring, we use them on multiple production lines, we know what station it's going to be. So where material is at any time. And this slide deck's a little bit old. We've made a lot of improvements, and so this was kind of our initial was to just use the Toyota Kanban suppliers. We found others, and we've been designing some bins, working with different Kanban bin makers, and some of them have smart bins, and some have some other kind of creative solutions, and with digital license plates, they call it, and you can program them, just like, kind of like if you've ever been at the store and you saw like the tags that have some digital price or information on it. They have those kinds of things, and that's kind of cool. We have, the Kanban loop calculator. And stole this from Toyota too, which is, their work order sizes, like, hey, let's build 240 red Camrys, and it's going to be base grade. And so then if we want to do our calculations, we know that, I need to buy tires in multiples of 12, right? So I automatically know how many cars I'm going to buy, and And so I need, 20 racks of 12 dires in order to make my 240 Camrys. And, continual flow, one piece flow, all these kind of, there's a lot of different names to call this, but lean manufacturing. And, this slide deck's pretty old. This is when we were building the plant in Gainesville, Georgia. Being able to feed material to the line and take away empties without, you never want the production operator to stop working. It just pick, place, right? And if he stops for any reason, you're basically lying down. So, this is kind of the concept. And these aren't Kanban bins. There's no RFID tag. There's not even part identification traceability in this picture, but it's just a simulation to demonstrate a concept. And talking a little about Jidoka, and you have issues where you reject things and you have to move them someplace, and you need a quarantine area, and none of the stuff is new. Plan for Repart was first used in 1896. This guy, he had a loom and he was making cloth, and the British people thought that this was a magic loom because his shirts were of such high quality. And he was able to make them so quickly that it had to be magic. And so they paid him a ton of money. And then he used that money to start a car company, and it still exists today. He probably heard of it. So, um, so Plan for Repart does work. And then, finished goods, and we have outbound Kanbans, and, we control FOD, and, physical inventory, and all that kind of stuff becomes so much easier. We don't have to count this. I know there are 36 pieces in this sealed bag from the supplier of this O-ring. Super easy. So I wanted to give you an overview of the system, so you might know where we are, and it might better help you to understand what we need, so that you might be able to offer things that you have that we don't know that you have, and how we're able to take advantage of the warehouse management system. Was that helpful?
Very helpful. So the reality is, what you have presented is not foreign to what we see a lot of. Now, when I say that, many plants are 60% of the way there or 70% of the way there. And then that slows down because they, we'll say, get a little overburdened with issues that come up in inventory, and they lose their momentum and their passion because it's easier just to deal with this problem here and this problem there instead of developing or implementing a more improved solution. And in saying that, I do have some questions. I know that most of your OEMs use EDI to communicate orders. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Do you get ASNs?
We do, but we don't receive ASNs from all of our customers. So, for example, we have power sports customers, we have defense customers, we have aftermarket customers. The automotive customers do send ASNs and EDI. We send the advanced shipping notice. They send
Right.
us EDI.
Basic.
Right. Yeah, 860s, 830s, Del 4s, Del Jits, all that kind of stuff, so that we know how to forecast and plan and the releases and all that stuff, right?
I asked the wrong question. Do your suppliers send ASNs?
No,
I would say
they
no
do not.
comment, but in most cases, no. If
Okay.
at all, right?
Yeah, we don't.
Okay. Classically, if you're getting orders from GM or Toyota or Chrysler, they require ASNs from you. It is not untoward for you to require ASNs from your suppliers. And I say require because it's a difficulty. There are words for it. Suppliers just say no, but that's integral to making what you are looking at work, at least for the automotive section. And if you're shipping to Ford, Ford has a load of lot traceability issues that actually spread from your plant into your suppliers. Though they may have not required them from you, it's on. I don't remember the form. I think it's it's the 2022 requirement, but I don't remember that. It could be this year's requirement. Have to admit, I'm in so many meetings that I stop remembering what the latest set of requirements are. So your example, your document is wonderful. It paints out exactly where you want to go. All the we'll call it the blind spots in the part business book. You have covered scrap. I didn't see anything about reject and how you handle reject, which is a difficult issue to manage when you're doing production. And I only say it difficult because if you don't have a rule for it, then technically we don't, we're not 100%. So it would be interesting to know how you handle rejects.
Yeah, so we do have flows and processes for controlling non-conforming materials, controlling non-conforming assemblies, controlling non-conforming product. That's all part of GDOCA and other parts as it relates to PFEP.
Okay. And then I'd be interested in how you reintroduce a part made good. But that's for a discussion sometime in the future. We do have a product we call the receiving engine, and it by container received. We believe that each container has a serial number as well as a part definition or a part number and a quantity. Those are actually scanned to receive. PO is checked. Overshipment, undershipment, all of that is checked. We're used to having an ASN from the suppliers. If we don't have an ASN, we have to believe that what they sent us is what you ordered. So other than the fact that it is the beginning for those plants that do not have an automated serialized scanning method for your material coming in, we say that's a portion of WMS. For those plants that actually scan material in with serial number identified, part quantity, etc., lot number identified, you don't have to have a receiving client. We just steal that information from your ERP. We do hold that the ERP is the sole source of data. But in the case where you're not recording serial number information on your ERP, we hold that. And in the case of warehouse management, where each one of your shelves, each one of your rolling racks, etc., is actually a location, the ERP rarely holds all of that location information, and we hold that within Blackhawk. So I'm just going to bluntly say our receiving client is something that we should demo on a future date, just so you can see everything that comes with it. I would, if you decide to go with us, I am really going to preach getting your suppliers to send you ASNs. Why is that? The rule behind ASN is they have to send you the ASN within 30 minutes of that trailer leaving the dock. Okay. The second thing is that to generate an ASN, the serial number of the individual containers has to be on the ASN. So we know that they had to scan to ship. Either that or they did a lot of data entry to generate an ASN. And so those two business rules imply, project some proper level of systems on your supplier. Now, are you going to get that right off the bat? No. Magna has big suppliers that say no, they're not going to do an ASN, and that worst comes to worst, that allows the purchasing group to sort of fulcrum a cost reduction, because you end up saying that you have to do additional paperwork to verify their shipment, which you do. So that's one of the things we should demo sometime in the future, if you continue to be interested, is our receiving client. The actual scanning to move piece is very simple on the surface. You imagine you just want to scan a serial number and then scan the location it's going to. So it's not a big effort, but in that behavior, it allows us to do a lot of quality control, FIFO enforcement, if that is needed. I hope that you will get all of your suppliers to properly manage their container size and things like that. We don't have, in the number of plants we have, we don't have any group of suppliers for that plant that obey all the rules all of the time. Sadly, short shipments come in. Sadly, damaged product comes in right off the dock, so they repackage, relabel, and it's a non-standard pack. And with the FIFO behavior of moving product to the line, you may need the ability to sort of put a non-standard pack quantity in the flow at some time. Or what you may say is that we're going to put all non-standard packs in this location, and once a day, the system will tell you what parts can be sort of consumed to make a standard pack, and it's just repackaged right at we'll call it the warehouse location. That's discussion and how you want to make it work best for your plant. You also have multiple plants involved with this, so no one is going to actually be able to turn on everything at once. So the decision may be made, and these are just options, to implement we'll call it location management solution to handle a location that has 20 different parts and 40 different containers of those parts, and you may want the material handler to find a specific serial number of a specific container, and that certainly can be enforced with our solution, but it's really up to you on how you want to implement. So I would like to schedule another meeting to discuss receiving, if that's what you would like to do. And maybe we'll call it a simple demonstration of the warehousing product itself, which is tablet based, though you have hand scanners with, I didn't get a number on your hand scanner, so I can't tell you that it will work, but most of the modern scanners have web-based piece to it, and so we would be happy with it. There is one thing that I needed to ask about Honda. Honda has a line side requirement of on-demand labeling of your containers. Is that done?
Yeah, when you say on demand, you mean like the Kanban cards that we print, like the master labels that are associated with the EDI as we ship outbound to them?
I apologize, I missed that.
So you said on-demand printing. So when we receive EDI, we're going to receive the DelJet, and the DelJet says, "Hey, we're going to pick up 100 pieces of part number 1, 2, 3 this afternoon, at 3 p.m." And so we will print a label for that pallet, you know, based on however many's in a standard pallet, right? And um, and that has a unique identifier for that pallet. Is that what you're talking about? Like the master label connected to
Correct.
EDI?
Well, not connected to EDI, not originally. The quality engineer, the Honda quality engineer who comes and inspects your production line, uh, has the ability to tell you that he doesn't want a label that exists before the container exists. And so they've come up with the term on-demand line-side labeling.
Yeah, we have a master pack system that we have serialization of our products so that our products, it's all interlocked. So you have to pass every station on the line for that serial number in order to be packed out. Otherwise, you can't generate a master label. You can't ship it. And a master label is only generated if, let's say, there is 24 products per container. If you don't have 24 unique good serial numbers, the master label will not print, and you're not able to ship it.
Okay, so you do have on-demand line-side labeling then, because you're not printing that label before it's meant to be placed on the container.
Right. Yeah, that's all part of error proofing.
Okay. Now there are unique pieces of data that go onto that label. Some of what come from EDI. So that must be integrated for you to get a good shipping label. So
Yeah, it's absolutely linked. All of it's linked together.
okay, good, because that's my major concern for many of the plants we come into is if they're batch printing container labels and using those as sort of Kanban cards in their production effort. Honda may or may not find that acceptable. GM has a heartache. Ford will have a temper tantrum. It's just that each quality engineer that I've run against, if they're not having a good day, tend to pull out the book and say, you got to do this and this and this again. But since you're already doing Honda, and I'm sure they visited your production line, if they're happy, I'm happy. Actually, if they're happy, you've done a great job, because usually they're never happy.
Yeah, our other customers are actually more stringent than Honda, but yeah, our master pack system, you're not able to print a master label. If you needed to, let's say we damaged a label, it fell on the floor and stuck, and we had to reprint it, it would require a supervisor override in order to generate a replacement label. So it's completely error proof, 100%.
And was this solution built inside your company?
It was. We did partner with some outside individuals and to develop the system.
Yes, I'm just more of curious than anything else. So all of the validation that you do on your master labels is built within our MES, not our WMS. So I am happy to hear that you have that conquered, because usually that's a much bigger heartache than WMS. Now, looking outward, is that error proofing system that you have currently running, is that in all your plants, or is
Yes,
that?
it is.
Okay, great. I love the answer. So Mark went through the effort of explaining to me how you have, we'll say, organized your part quantity entry effort into Oracle, which is fine. All the receiving and material transfer for the warehouse management solution will follow those rules that you presently have, and we have a data transfer layer to our product where if your ERP can handle serial numbers, we do everything using your serial number mechanism. If it doesn't, then we hold the serial numbers. We add up all the part quantities, deliver that information to your ERP in a timely manner. Our goal is to be seamless, and we work on that from the get-go. We don't want any paperwork. I think I've said that before, but it's important not to change your current accounting culture with any work that we do. We'll put a fair amount of effort into that and testing because I like the controllers to actually like me pretty much. So we didn't go in detail on how the warehouse management system works. If you have time, I would like just 5 minutes to go through that effort. Is that reasonable? Is that a good next step?
Sounds good to me.
I've got time.
Okay. The receiving piece is pretty important because we scan each container coming into the building and make sure that those labels are unique and that we have all the information needed. In other words, serial number, part, quantity, lot number, anything else you want to record that is built within the barcode. Now, we like 2D barcodes. There are, we'll call it AIG standards for the 2D barcode. We will help you and encourage your suppliers to correctly label those containers because every label that is incorrect, we need to fix or you need to fix. We give you all those tools to fix it, but we don't like your suppliers to get off scot-free. So we ask you if you want to do a receiving discrepancy and ding them for the bad label. Okay. Now, most of our customers that implemented the ding, literally after the trouble it causes, they record the discrepancy, but they don't bill back for it unless there's a massive issue, and then they use it as a fulcrum more than a debit. It's up to you. There's nothing forced here. Everything's configurable, but you spend a fair amount of time in correcting your suppliers. If that is the case, then you should be identifying the suppliers and letting the suppliers know they're not doing their job. And it's not unreasonable to have your suppliers correctly label the product they're sending you.
Maybe I should show you something real quickly here. So I know, are you familiar with VDA?
No, sir.
Okay, so VDA is the German standard similar to IATF.
Okay.
And so VDA has a description of what should go into that's why I say VDA labels. It's an international standard. And actually IATF and others look at the VDA label standard. And so you'll notice that these fields immediately will look familiar because all of the automakers follow the VDA standard. And so you can see this is what all of our suppliers are using to ship us product. So every individual box of parts has a VDA label with a unique identifier, part number, everything already in it. So we already received this for everything, 100% across the board.
Really? I've never had I am glad that you've enforced that. That 2D label in the upper right-hand corner.
Yeah, the data matrix barcode.
Yes. Is there a definition on this?
What kind of information are you looking for?
Well, does it have the lot? First of all, 2D labels have a specific data identifier before each data piece. In other words,
it's all here and the breakdown of the barcode field requirements for it's data matrix and it's VDA. So I recommend getting a copy of VDA 4993 4994 the standard, so you know the format and you can see how it's laid out. This is an international standard. It's not a POX thing. We just follow the same thing as the auto industry does, and actually power sports customers do too. And there are some other cases.
I suspect that I am belaboring the obvious, because given our largest plants that are still scanning to receive through in our software, I ask them, do they use the standard? And they say, no, what is the standard? And so we end up walking through them this label standard that is a subset of actually what the VDA standard is. So I suspect everything's fine, and you're very rare. You're the only plant we know that has their suppliers 100% compliant. And even if it's a little bit, then you're way better than literally all of our other plants.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we're having a problem right now that the functionality of Oracle was never turned on. So we're having to overlabel the VDA information because Oracle won't be able to receive it. And so that's how we're hoping that you can help us, is if you can collect this information, we can scan this, and there's a warehouse management system that says, okay, this part, this unique identifier of part number 123, the ID number is 171, and it's located, in its home position. And we can see that in the WMS. That helps us a lot. And if it can talk to Oracle to say, okay, part number 123 was moved to that location, that's good enough for Oracle, because that's all it's able to do right now. But the WMS would be able to tell us, how many of unique identifiers and which unique identifier and lot control and FIFO. That's kind of what we're hoping from the WMS, is that it can scan and use and communicate with Oracle to do the transactions in a more smooth manner. Because as you may know, Oracle requires something like 27 steps to transact a material. So it's quite cumbersome. And so that's kind of what we're looking for in the solution that you may offer us.
What Mark and I went through 2 days ago is he walked me through some of the requirements, and the fact that it would be ideal if our receiving client could perform a receiving event, identify all the containers by the unique serial number, which it can, move it to locations, which it can, update a receiving event on Oracle, which I stated, if your Oracle team can tell us what information Oracle needs and gives us the tool, the import tool, to build the receiver in Oracle, the answer to that is yes, we can do that. We do it with SAP, QAD, all the Infor products, Microsoft. It doesn't strike me as Oracle being without those tools. But I don't know. I assume that they're there, but I don't know. And then the portion of FIFO enforcement when you're picking product, since it's serialized, those rules are sort of embedded into the warehouse management. When the person goes to pick a product, he literally is told where it's at and be able to enforce that they pick the oldest one in that current lot, because you may receive more than one lot on the same day, depending on the volume of product coming in. But those rules have to be defined. Excuse me. So that's
Bob, I'm sorry to interrupt, but your volume went out a little bit. Can you adjust that if you can?
Okay. Is that better?
Not to me. Can you guys hear him okay?
He's very muffled right now.
1 second. Is that better?
Not really. Sorry.
One more chance. Okay, we're gonna another chance.
You know that we're kind of getting close to the time. I need to jump to another meeting, so it might be a good stopping point anyway. I don't know if there's a way we could do a demo
Can I
or
suggest
something.
that we? Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep,
Yes.
go ahead.
It sounds like a commercial I've heard on TV. Can I suggest that we schedule a demonstration of receiving and of the warehouse management scan to move functionality, so you can see it in reality?
We could, and we have a test instance of Oracle that's not live that we could do that with to kind of experiment. It doesn't impact anything in real world. We use test Oracle all the time to experiment with modules and other things, and so we would just need to coordinate with the Oracle team for their availability, and then we could probably line up something and try a demo. I'm really interested to see this, because if we can receive the VDA labels and we can utilize those to drive FIFO and inventory control, that would be amazing. And if you can, you know, include in that any interactions with RFID tags and, you know, how we're able to utilize that, that would be extra credit.
Well, there's no extra credit in this process. The RFID that we are working with is very rudimentary at the plants. In fact, we have plants that are having problems with their Honda RFID because the readers literally are not, what's the good word here? They're not, they cover too much space. So they cannot identify where the simple container is at any given moment outside of like 25 feet. And so their design is not good. Now, in saying that, the RFID doesn't bother us in any manner, because you identify the hardware and what it's capable of, and then our system literally just defines a handshake. It's a service that goes in and says, you know, what containers are in my area, or what containers passed through my area, like going from one location to another. And those are just services that run on the server. So in saying that, I need to have more information on your RFID, but it's not a big consideration of what to do. It's more of a how to do it. Now, the Oracle interface is not written. We need to work with your team to figure out what the requirements are that Oracle requires, and then we'll implement them. So our demo will be of one of our present systems that is running in an automotive parts plant, and it will end up being AIAG labels, just because this is the standard they run off of. And to move from an AIG label to the different label rule set wouldn't be bad. Now, if you want, I can have my team define a different shipping label or receiving label to use the standard you have, but I don't perceive that's a big issue.
No, AIAG points to the VDA standard.
So
the AIAG label is the VDA label.
So I'm just making sure that I communicate clearly. So I think the next one is just the demo of receiving, demo of the warehouse management system scan to move piece, so you can see labels. I think the vision has changed, just because we have been just told, or I've just heard, that it would be a home run to just read the labels coming out of your receiving area and do the receiver and use that same label to enforce FIFO, etc. And that's almost that's very doable and fairly quickly. So I will work on my phone issue before the next meeting. When do you want to schedule the demo of receiving and scan to move?
You know, can you shoot us some possible dates and then we talk with our Oracle team and we align with everybody's calendar? I don't know that we can answer that question right now, but give us some dates that work for you and then we'll see how it lines up with everybody else's calendars.
Thank you very much. And I apologize for my phone issues. I think I need a new phone. So,
Yeah, no worries.
okay.
We appreciate your time.
Oh, my pleasure.